You know, as someone who has long been a fan of Bethesda Game Studios and a lover of the sci-fi genre across all mediums, yeah, Starfield has long been on my wish list since the game was announced. And as someone who has really mained competitive PvP first-person shooter games for the last however many years now, it's quite the change of pace, quite frankly. But that change of pace has really resonated with me in ways that I didn't expect it would, and I wanted to have a chat about that with you all today. G'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and let's have a chat about the importance of narrative and Starfield's reminder to me as a gamer. So folks, if you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, then there's a good chance that you spend a lot of time in multiplayer, competitive, first-person shooter games like I do, and that me whipping out some old Starfield gameplay may come as a bit of a shock to you guys. And that is entirely fair. Multiplayer first-person shooter games is where the majority of my time as a gamer is spent, and it's the genre that I have dedicated the majority of my time to over the years here on the channel. But as I said before, I've always been both a Bethesda and a sci-fi fan, so Starfield is very much a threat to my ability to be an adult and a productive member to society. And as someone who hasn't really had the time to dig my teeth into a strong single-player game in what feels like years now, Starfield has not only been a nice change of pace, but has also been a very compelling reminder as to one of the main reasons that gaming has drawn me in my whole life like it has done. That reason being the sense of narrative. And believe it or not, that applies to those thick-skulled competitive PvP first-person shooter games as well, and I'll explain that shortly. Just for the avoidance of doubt here guys, and to give some assurance, the gameplay from Starfield that I am going to run in the background here for this video is not going to feature any spoilers to the main story. Any story content that will be shown in this video is from very early on in the game that has already been shown in promotional material, and if you want to go through the game completely blind and you don't want to, have anything ruined for you, you can just minimize the window and listen to the video like it's a podcast and miss out on the visuals. And trust me, you can still enjoy the video that way as well. I just wanted to offer everyone that assurance. I'm not going to spoil the experience for you all here today either. But to loop back to the crux of the video here today, folks, I think it goes without saying that gaming has long been one of the most powerful mediums for taking people on journeys and stories. I personally think back through all of the games that I've played in my past, and some of the absolute pearlers of stories come to mind. Stories like that of Red Dead Redemption, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Life is Strange. Hell, even some of the best shooter game campaigns out there, like the original Modern Warfare saga, Battlefield Bad Company 2, Halo, all of which are great stories that will sit with me for the rest of my life. There's something that resonates so clearly with me, and I'm going to go out on a strong bet here and say that the same applies to the most of you watching this video, to being a part of a story that plays out in front of you. Being immersed in it is one thing, but making decisions that impact that outcome and soaking up the storyline at your own pace, getting lost in the world around it. There's something to me that's very special about storytelling in video games, and being the person that somewhat controls yet goes on that journey as a player. And getting back into a game like Starfield, looking at all the things you can do, all of the branching storylines I can get into, and decisions that I can make as a character that impact the world around me, again, it's exciting. And I should be clear, my time with Starfield is still very early days so far. I've only clocked around 6 hours at the time of writing this video, but the atmosphere and the effort that Starfield puts in to immerse you in that story and that narrative is one of the game's biggest strengths so far, in my opinion. So, on that initial note, Starfield has very much resonated with me in the sense that, again, I feel like I'm undertaking a narrative as a player, and that to me is one of the biggest strengths of gaming as a medium. But this is where I'm going to go out on a limb here and try and tie this idea of narrative to those boneheaded FPS games that I've been talking about, even those that don't have campaigns at all. So stay with me here as I try to go through this point and this line of thinking. We all have that starting point when we get into a PvP FPS game that sees us, well, at the bottom of the leaderboard. I know that's sure as hell how I started out when getting into first-person shooter games. Hell, Shroud himself wasn't born into the world as an absolute FPS demon that he's known for being today. It took him time, and it took going on a journey of improving one's mechanical skill to reach such a point. And understanding that between point A and point B, there is a journey to undertake is very important. You need to understand that, like the narrative of any good story, you're going to go through your own narrative as a player that will see you face trials and tribulations, good and bad days, conflict and resolution. There'll be chapters of your triumph and chapters of your despair as you work through the skills of becoming a better player in those FPS games. I mean, sure, there's some enjoyment in getting into a first-person shooter lobby and demolishing players from the get-go. It's why so many people resort to hacking. It's for that immediate dopamine hit of feeling like they're on the top of the world. But similar to how the majority of us tend to play through a story-driven game, we don't skip to the end. There's far more to gain from going on the journey from start to finish and enjoying the big middle bit there that outlines the why and the how to going from beginning to end. It builds character, it builds experience, it builds context, and above all else, it builds a sense of meaning, which is where my brief experience with Starfield as a first-person shooter player mainly has really resonated with me so far. It's reminded me that going through a narrative is an experience that is worth savoring and enjoying, and, most importantly here, that you yourself can go through a narrative in the absence of one in the game itself that talks to you. Your accomplishments, your progression, your pitfalls, your bad days and your good days, all of that stuff. It talks to you as a player and your story of getting better in that game. Much like a single-player game, you can't just drop into a narrative halfway through without taking the baby steps first and expect to enjoy it. And identifying where you are on that journey as a player and setting those expectations within yourself accordingly is a very important step. And there's no shame in starting from the beginning. We all have been there. Everyone is going to walk their own path when it comes to their personal narrative around how they accomplish a game in particular, especially a game that, hasn't got a narrative outlined in front of you to work with. And with that, it's also worth pointing out that your personal narrative in relation to a game may not tell the story of your rise through the ranks as a player, thanks to your mechanical skill. It may be, all about building stronger friendships with your mates, or maybe even working on your teamwork and leadership skills. Again, there's so many ways that you can swing that personal narrative of yours to match up with the kind of experience that you're looking to get out of a particular game. But ultimately, if you take the time to enjoy that narrative as it plays out, then you'll have an epic story to tell that's yours. A story of you overcoming challenges either personally or with your buddies, growing in some kind of skill, or maturing as a person in some way. This is the narrative of the player. And Starfield has really reminded me, as a first-person shooter player primarily, just how important that story is to enjoy in the moment, and to really savor the process of going through it. Because yes, reaching that end goal is obviously going to feel fantastic, but the way in which you get there and enjoying those little moments of accomplishment that lead you to getting to that end goal that you've set for yourself is a narrative and a story that I think is really worth savoring and really worth telling. And Starfield has done a great job at sort of putting that back into my perspective, and it will be something that I carry with me going forward as I go back to my first-person shooter games, once I'm done blowing a ton of time on Starfield, that is. Across all walks of gaming, folks, I encourage you to enjoy the journey, and well, don't be in such a hurry to get to the finishing line, because you may come to a point where you get there, and you may have just forgotten to take a moment to smell the roses along the way, and enjoy that process and that journey. So yeah folks, that is going to be everything from me for today's video. Something a little bit different for my channel and my kind of content here, but let me know in the comments section down below your thoughts, and feel free to get involved in the conversation that I'm sure will play out as a result of this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to backhand the like button and get subscribed to the channel, and let me know if you want to see more Starfield content. I'm not someone who normally covers single-player games here on the channel, but quite frankly, I'm enjoying the game far too much to, not cover it, so we'll see how we go. And as always, check out our social media links in the description down below. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.